Time to get your fix. Come on down, get your horrible gaming review. 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 Wow.
Hello, my name is Zachariah with Old Man Gaming, and you have decided to tune into another horrible game review. Before we get into it, as usual, my disclaimers. Number one, the word horrible in the title of this content does not necessarily refer to the game or DLC that I am reviewing, but much more the content itself. I do snap judgment reviews on this channel, meaning I get about 5 to 10 hours with the game, and I'm just trying to give you an idea of whether you're going to have fun right off the rip or not. Next, I do not give scored reviews for video games. I think it's one of the most subjective forms of art. Therefore, I will be giving you an overview of the game. I will tell you the pros and the cons of the game in my opinion, as all reviews are. And then I will tell you whether or not I'm going to stick with it past the purposes of this review itself. With that out of the way, let's get into the review itself. Look, there's not a lot of big releases coming out anytime soon, so I get to go back and do some of the smaller ones that I've liked to. This week, I decided to check out a game on Games Pass called Monster Sanctuary. Now, this game is an older game. It's been in beta before, but it just came to Games Pass, I think, in the last week. So, what's Monster Sanctuary? Well, if you like Pokemon and you like Metroidvania, you're going to like Monster Sanctuary, and I know how contradictory that is. You play a monster keeper, and you play on this kind of mythical fantasy world in which you're in a land called the Monster Sanctuary. There's a large castle where all the monster keepers live, and then they actually go out into the Monster Sanctuary. They fight and cull the monsters while also capturing and raising the monsters for themselves, which of course ingratiates the monsters to humankind. So in a lot of ways it's very Pokemon-like. The big difference here, well, there's a couple of big differences, but one of the biggest is very clearly the 2D way that this is presented. Side-scrolling, not over the top. So Pokemon was always a over-the-top isometric view until you got into a battle, in which case it was kind of like behind the one monster. With this, you pick a team of 6, and then in a fight, you can pick a team of 3 out of those 6 that you have readied. But you move through it kind of like Mario or Castlevania. And the reason it's a Metroidvania is it's in that kind of style of game where you kind of move back to a place once you can get through it, and then forward, like the map never really changes, but you just can't access all of it until you get the right stuff. As you run into other monsters, you'll fight them with your monsters, and then the way you capture them is based on how good you win the fight. So the least amount of turns, most amount of damage, least amount of damage taken, you get a higher star rating, 1 out of 5, and the higher the star rating, the more rare gear you get, and the higher chance of them dropping a monster egg, which you can immediately hatch to get a version of the monster that you just fought. I like that there's no Pokeball system, anything like that, any random chance to just not get the monster that you've worked to get, other than not getting it in the first place from the fight itself. The monsters themselves each have a skill tree, have a very in-depth skill tree. They also have a feeding mechanic to build out their different attributes, as well as an equipment mechanic. So there's a lot you can do to your monsters after you have them, other than just leveling them up. I'm not talking much about the story here, because really there's not much to the story, and there doesn't need to be. You're a monster keeper. There's kind of some strange things going on, so you have to go on quests to figure out what those strange things are and stop those strange things. It's really run-of-the-mill. You've got a couple of rivals, and you start with kind of this unique spirit monster. You can choose one of 4 of them, and then the other 3 rivals get the other 3. I think it's a toad, a bird, a lion, and a wolf. As far as movement goes, the environmental puzzles are interesting because how they work is each type of monster you collect, whether it be in your actual party or not, you can switch to them while you're moving around in the actual field. And then you have a button prompt that does a special movement power. So like certain earth guys will drop a little rock that you can stand on and get a little bit of a higher jump, or it weighs down pressure paints. The bird one can carry you to extend your jump. Stuff like that, you know. So that makes it kind of like very interesting, trying to figure out what monster is right for what job. You also have this kind of situation where as you move through, you collect things for your personal self, such as like double jump boots I had just collected before I had finished with this review, which allowed me to jump to even higher places. So it's very interesting game, very interesting premise. You could tell somebody really took all the games that they loved and just tried to like put them all together, basically. And I'm kind of surprised at how well they did that. So with that out of the way, let's get into the pros and cons. Pro number one, without a doubt, is how in-depth you can build your monsters. I want to say one final disclaimer here, because this is not a type of game I usually play. I have not played Pokemon since like Red and Yellow, and maybe a little bit of Pokemon Go. So I have not dabbled in this genre much, the monster collect fight genre. That being said, I feel like from what I know about the other games and this one, this is the most in-depth when it comes to what you can do with your monsters. Every monster has 4 different trees that you can build into special abilities, and they have like level up that basically you can take them through the entire game building them. You add in the in-depth equipment system as well as the feed system, and you can really, really custom your builds on each monster itself. It's kind of like a mini build for every monster you want to take into a fight, and I think that is amazing. This game is kind of a tinkerer's dream in that regards. Like, there's just so much to play with. As usual with this game, there is an elemental system that allows your attacks to do more damage to certain monsters that you're facing and take more damage to other monsters. So there's really, really a lot of build stuff in this, like figuring out which monster to take in and where to put them. Where to put them is what's going to bring me to my next pro, and something I didn't discuss in the overview, because I think it's just a straight pro all the way. There is a combo system to this. You're going to see in the video footage, up in the, I believe it's right-hand corner of the screen, you're going to see a little thing that says combo with a counter next to it, and then under it, it's going to say damage. Now, every time one of your monsters hits an enemy, the combo counter goes up, and the damage percentage goes up, meaning that all attacks after that are dealing that much more damage. So 100% means a standard attack. 110 means you're dealing an extra 10% damage. So you have this other interesting level where, depending on the order you pick the monsters in, the one in the back is going to be doing the most damage to whoever he's targeting. So you have to really strategize as to weighing the people in the front. Do you want them to hit more, or status buff your characters or debuff your opponents? Because hitting more is going to give that last guy more raw damage, whereas status buffing might give him the opening or set up status effects on your opponents. There's a lot of ways to play this. Right off the bat, I was able to do 2 different kind of like team builds that I found. One was a heavy attack team build. I put a heavy critical beast in the back row, and then I had 2 in the front, and I would just build up that combo and deal a lot of just raw damage. There's a whole nother way where I put a bunch of guys together with healing, restorative, and defensive skills, but they all had some sort of status effect to apply. And what I would do is I would just hide behind the shield, set all my opponents on fire, and watch them burn, because the status effects stack on opponents. So there's a lot of different ways to go with that, and I thought the build diversity from what I saw and was amazing right off the bat. But all that kind of centers around that combo system, that initial combo system that really kind of gives things another dynamic level. You know, I'm not going to talk about this in the cons. I'm going to talk about it in the pros, but it's going to start like a con. This game is text-based as far as dialogue, so no voice acting. I always hate that. Look, I understand these game developers don't have money to pay actors all the time, especially the independent ones, so I understand it. Just me personally, I have a hard time not skimming with this, and you're probably like, how is this a pro? The reason this is a pro is the dialogue is pretty quick, snappy. I never really lost the thread of it because every character just kind of says what they need to say and we move on. I enjoyed that, at least so far. There hasn't been any long-winded, novel-sized speeches that I've got to read, so that was a plus. Alright, let's jump over into cons. My biggest con is actually, I'm going to say menu fatigue. And you're going to be like, I don't know what you're talking about. And this is kind of like a byproduct of the style of this game. I mean, it has Metroidvania elements, but it also is at its core a Pokemon/JRPG kind of game. And with that being said, your characters are constantly leveling up. With the ability to have a 6-person team, because of those elements, you have these like 6 full characters. Those characters tend to constantly be leveling up, so you are constantly going in and updating their skill trees. Like, it is nonstop. So like every other fight, at least, you're going in, you're upgrading a skill point, you're switching out a piece of equipment, and that gets a little bit old to me. And again, I don't know how you would do this better. Like, this game is very obvious that kind of style of game, so there's very little I think that they could do to change this. Still, it's something that irritated me, so I've got to point it out. It didn't really detract from my like or love of this game so far. Alright, that's my only con. So let's go to whether or not I'm going to stick with it. I think I might stick with this for a little bit. I mean, I have recently stopped playing Cyberpunk. I have only a couple of games on my tray right now. There's not a ton of reviews to be done, so I think I'm actually going to stick with this. I'm kind of enjoying it. I want to see where it goes, and I'm enjoying the build system, so I might actually pop back on this a couple of times. And I will say, as far as recommendation goes, if you like Pokemon, you owe it to yourself to try this game. If you like any sort of monster like catching game like that, you owe it to yourself to give this game a try. It is really good, really innovative in my opinion. So, that's it. That's the review. Guys, you can check us out on Facebook at OldManGamingDH, on Twitter at OldManGaming9. You can join our Discord. The link will be in the description below, and you can influence this in all of our shows from there. And as usual, if you guys keep watching and listening, I will keep making them. See you guys next time.